a divorce. The lawyers will call you blessed. In any event, the Baroness conscientiously added, your lawyers will. I am afraid that hers will scarcely be so courteous, the Grand Duke queried. It is not altogether impossible, the Baroness admitted, that in preparation of their briefs, they may light upon some other adjective. And, in short, His Highness summed it up, there will be the dues to pay. Oh, no. The piper, said the Baroness, after long years of dancing. That is what moralists will be saying, I suspect. And this seemed so highly probable that the plump little Grand Duke frowned, and lapsed into a most ducal sullenness. Your Highness, murmured the Baroness, I cannot express my feelings as to this shocking revelation, Madam, said the Grand Duke, no more can I. At least, not in the presence of a lady. But I have a plan, I, said the Grand Duke, have an infinity of plans, but de Chatures has a carriage, and a superfluity of Bourbon blood, and Victoria has the obstinacy of a mule. And my plan, said the Baroness, is a good one. It needs to be, said the Grand Duke. But thereupon the Baroness von Altenburg unfolded to His Highness her scheme for preserving coherency in the reigning family of New Moria, and the Grand Duke of that principality heard and marvelled. Amalia, he said, when she had ended, you should be Prime Minister. Ah, your Highness, said the lady, you flatter me, for none of my sex has ever been sufficiently unmanly to make a good politician. Though, indeed, the Grand Duke reflected, what would a mere Prime Minister do with lips like yours? He would set you an excellent example by admiring them from a distance. Do you agree, then, to my plan? Why, ma foi, yes, said the Grand Duke, and he sighed. In the gardens at dawn. At dawn, said the Baroness, in the gardens. For that night the Grand Duke was somewhat impeded in falling asleep. He was seriously annoyed by the upsetment of his escape from the New Marian exile, since he felt that he had prodigally fulfilled his obligations, and in consequence deserved a holiday. The duchy was committed past retreat to the French alliance. There were 2 legitimate children to reign after him, and be the puppets of de Puisange and de Bernis. Footnote: the Grand Duke, however, owed de Puisange some reparation for having begot a child upon the latter's wife, and with de Bernis had not dissimilar ties, for the Marquise de Soyecourt had in Venice, in 1749, relinquished to him the beautiful nun of Muran, Maria Montepulci, which Lady de Bernis subsequently turned over to Giacomo Casanova, as is duly recorded in the latter's memoirs, under the year 1753. Just as he had been. Truly, it was diverting, after a candid appraisal of his own merits, to reflect that a dwarfish Louis de Soyecourt had succeeded where quite impeccable people like Bayard and du Guesclin had failed. By 4 years of scandalous living in New Moria he had confirmed the duchy to the French interest, had thereby secured the wavering friendship of Austria, and had, in effect, set France upon her feet. Yes, the deed was notable, and he wanted his reward. To be the forsaken husband, to place Garnerel with all Europe as an audience, was, he considered, an entirely inadequate reward. That was out of the question, for, deuce take it, somebody had to be regent while the brats were growing up. And Victoria, as he had said, would make an admirable regent. He was rather fond of his wife than otherwise. He appreciated the fact that she never meddled with him, and he sincerely regretted she should have taken a fancy to that good-for-nothing de Chatures. What qualms the poor woman must be feeling at this very moment over the imminent loss of her virtue. But love was a cruel and unreasonable lord. There was Nelchin Thorne, for instance. He wondered would he have been happy with Nelchin. Her hands were rather coarse about the fingertips, as he remembered them. The hands of Amalia, though, were perfection. Then at last the body that had been Louis Quillen's fell asleep. Discontentedly the Grand Duke appraised the scene, and in the murky twilight which heralded the day he found the world a cheerless place. The gardens of Briscoe were deserted, save for a travelling carriage and its fretful horses, who stamped and snuffled within 40 yards of the summer house. It appears, he said, that I am the first on the ground, and that de Chatures is a dilatory lover. Young men degenerate. Saying this, he seated himself on a convenient bench, where de Chatures found him a few minutes later, and promptly dropped a portmanteau at the ducal feet. Monsieur le Comte, the Grand Duke said, this is an unforeseen pleasure. Your Highness, cried de Chatures, in astonishment. Ludovicus, said the Grand Duke, Dea Gratia Archidux Numarii, Princeps Gartinensis, and so on. And de Chatures caressed his chin. I did not know, said the Grand Duke, that you were such an early riser. Or perhaps, he continued, you are late in retiring. Fy, monsieur. You must be more careful. You must not create a scandal in our little court. He shook his finger knowingly at Philippe de Chatures. Your Highness, said the latter, and stammered into silence. You said that before, the Grand Duke leisurely observed. An affair of business, said the Grand Duke, casting his eye first toward the portmanteau and then toward the carriage. Can it be that you are leaving Numaria? We shall miss you, Comte. I was summoned very hastily, or I would have paid my respects to your Highness. Indeed, said the Grand Duke, your departure is of a deplorable suddenness. It is urgent, your Highness, and yet, pursued the Grand Duke, travel is beneficial to young men. I shall not go far, your Highness, nay, I would not for the world intrude upon your secrets, Comte, but my estates, your Highness, for young men will be young men, I know. There is, your Highness, to be a sale of meadow land, which you will find, I trust, untilled. And my counsellor at law, your Highness, is imperative, at times, agreed the Grand Duke. The most subtle of counsellors is unreasonable. I trust, though, that she is handsome. Ah, your Highness, cried de Chatures. And you have my blessing upon your culture of those meadow lands. Go in peace. The Grand Duke was smiling on his wife's kinsman with extreme benevolence when the Baroness von Altenburg appeared in travelling costume and carrying a portmanteau. "6 Haydée," said the Grand Duke, "it seems that the legal representative of our good Baroness, also, is imperative." "Your Highness," cried the Baroness, and she, too, dropped her burden. "Every one," said the Grand Duke, "appears to question my identity." And meantime de Chatures turned from the one to the other in bewilderment. "This," said the Grand Duke, after a pause, "is painful. This is unworthy of you, de Chatures." "Your Highness," cried the Count. "Again," said the Grand Duke, pettishly. The Baroness applied her handkerchief to her eyes, and plaintively said, "You do not understand, Your Highness." "I am afraid," said the Grand Duke, "that I understand only too clearly. And I confess I was here to meet Monsieur de Chatures." "Oh, oh," cried the latter. "Precisely," observed the Grand Duke, "to compare portmanteaux, and you had selected the interior of yonder carriage, no doubt, as an appropriate locality. And I admit to your Highness," His Highness already knowing the Grand Duke interpolated, "that we were about to elope." "I can assure you," de Chatures began. "Nay, I will take the lady's word for it," said the Grand Duke, "though it grieves me." "We knew you would never give your consent," murmured the Baroness, "and without your consent I cannot marry." "Undoubtedly," said the Grand Duke, "I would never have given my consent to such fiddle-faddle. And we love each other." "Fiddle-de-dee," said His Highness. But de Chatures passed one hand over his brow. "This," he said, "is some horrible mistake." "It is," assented the Grand Duke, "a mistake, and one of your making. For I certainly did not expect the Baroness to make a clean breast of it so readily," His Highness asked. "Ah, but she is a lady of unusual candor." "Indeed, your Highness," began de Chatures. "Nay, Philippe," the Baroness entreated, "confess to His Highness, as I have done." "Oh, but," said de Chatures. "I must beseech you to be silent," said the Grand Duke, "you have already brought scandal to our court. Do not, I pray you, add profanity to the catalogue of your offences. Why, I protest," he continued, "even the Grand Duchess has heard of this imbroglio." Indeed, the Grand Duchess, hurrying from a pleached walkway, was already within a few feet of the trio, and appeared no little surprised to find in this place her husband. "I would not be surprised," said the Grand Duke, raising his eyes toward heaven, "if by this time it were all over the palace." 7 Then, as his wife waited, speechless, the Grand Duke gravely asked, "You, too, have heard of this sad affair, Victoria?" "Ah, I perceive you have, and that you come in haste to prevent it, even to pursue these misguided beings, if necessary, as the fact that you come already dressed for the journey very eloquently shows. You are self-sacrificing, you possess a good heart, Victoria." "I did not know," began the Grand Duchess. Until the last moment the Grand Duke finished. I comprehend. But perhaps," he continued, hopefully, it is not yet too late to bring them to their senses." And turning toward the Baroness and de Chatures, he said, "I may not hinder your departure if you too in truth are swayed by love, since to control that passion is immeasurably beyond the prerogative of kings. Yet I beg you to reflect that the step you contemplate is irrevocable. Yes, and to you, madam, whom I have long viewed with a paternal affection, an emotion wholly justified by the age and rank for which it has pleased Heaven to preserve me, to you in particular I would address my plea. If with an entire heart you love Monsieur de Chatures, why, then, I concede that love is divine, and yonder carriage at your disposal. But I beg you to reflect." "Believe me," said the Baroness, "we are heartily grateful for your Highness' magnanimity. We may, I deduce, depart with your permission." "Oh, freely, if upon reflection, I can reflect only when I am sitting down," declared the Baroness. She handed her portmanteau to de Chatures, and stepped into the carriage. And the Grand Duke noted that a coachman and 2 footmen had appeared, from nowhere in particular. "To you, Monsieur le Comte," His Highness now began, with an Olympian frown, "I have naught to say. Under the cover of our hospitality you have endeavored to steal away the fairest ornament of our court. I leave you to the pangs of conscience, if indeed you possess a conscience. But the Baroness is unsophisticated, she has been misled by your fallacious arguments and specious pretense of affection." "She has evidently been misled," he said to the Grand Duchess, kindly, "as any woman might be." "As any woman might be," his wife very feebly echoed. "And I shall therefore," continued the Grand Duke, "do all within my power to dissuade her from this ruinous step. I shall appeal to her better nature, and not, I trust, in vain." He advanced with dignity to the carriage, wherein the Baroness was seated. "Amalia," he whispered, "you are an admirable actress. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, and most wonderful, wonderful. And yet again wonderful, and after that out of all whooping." The Baroness smiled. "And it is now time," said His Highness, "for me to appeal to your better nature. I shall do so in a rather loud voice, for I have prepared a most virtuous homily that I am unwilling the Grand Duchess should miss. You will at its conclusion be overcome with an appropriate remorse, and will obligingly burst into tears, and throw yourself at my feet. Pray remember that the left is the gouty one, and be forgiven. You will then be restored to favor, while de Chatures drives off alone and in disgrace. Your plan works wonderfully." "It is true," the Baroness doubtfully said, "such was the plan." "And a magnificent one," said the Grand Duke. "But I have altered it, your Highness." "And this alteration, Amalia, involves a trip to Vienna." "Not yet, Amalia. We must wait." "Oh, I could never endure delays," said the Baroness, "and, since you cannot accompany me, I am going with Monsieur de Chatures." The Grand Duke grasped the carriage door. "Preposterous," he cried. "But you have given your consent," the Baroness protested, "and in the presence of the Grand Duchess." "Which," said the Grand Duke, "was part of our plan." "Indeed, Your Highness, said the Baroness, it was a most important part. You must know, she continued, with some diffidence, that I have the misfortune to love Monsieur de Chatures. Who is in love with Victoria? I have the effrontery to believe, said the Baroness, that he is, in reality, in love with me. Especially after hearing him last night, the Grand Duke suggested. That scene, Your Highness, we had carefully rehearsed, 7 or 8 times. Personally, I agreed with Your Highness that the quotation from Theocritus was pedantic, but Philippe insisted on it. You conceive. The Grand Duke gazed meditatively upon the Baroness, who had the grace to blush. Then it was he asked, a comedy for my benefit. You would never have consented, she began. But the Grand Duke's countenance, which was slowly altering to a greenish pallor, caused her to pause. You will get over it in a week, Louis, she murmured, and you will find other baronesses. Oh, very probably, said His Highness, and he noted with pleasure that he spoke quite as if it did not matter. Nevertheless, this was a despicable trick to play upon the Grand Duchess. Yet I do not think the Grand Duchess will complain, said the Baroness von Altenburg. And it was as though a light broke on the Grand Duke. You planned all this beforehand? He inquired. Why, precisely, Your Highness. And de Chatures helped you? In effect, yes, Your Highness. And the Grand Duchess knew? The Grand Duchess suggested it, Your Highness, the moment that she knew you thought of eloping. And I, who tricked Gaston? Louis, said the Baroness von Altenburg, in a semi-whisper, your wife is one of those persons who cling to respectability like a tippler to his bottle. To her it is absolutely nothing how many women you may pursue, or conquer, so long as you remain here under her thumb, to be exhibited, in fair sobriety, upon the necessary public occasions. I pity you, my Louis. And she sighed with real compassion. He took possession of one gloved hand. At the bottom of your heart, His Highness said, irrelevantly, you like me better than you do Monsieur de Chatures. I find you the more entertaining company, to be sure, but what a woman most wants is to be loved. If I touch Philippe's hand for, say, the millionth part of a second longer than necessity compels, he treads for the remainder of the day above meteors. If yours, why, you at most admire my fingers. No doubt you are a connoisseur of fingers and such like trifles, but, then, a woman does not wish to be admired by a connoisseur so much as she hungers to be adored by a maniac. And accordingly, I prefer my stupid Philippe. You are wise, the Grand Duke estimated, I remember long ago, in Poictiers yonder. I loathe her, the Baroness said, with emphasis. Nay, I am ignorant as to who she was, but oh my Louis! Had you accorded me a tithe of the love you squandered on that abominable dairy maid, I would have followed you not only to Vienna. He raised his hand. There are persons yonder in whom the proper emotions are innate, let us not shock them. No, I never loved you, I suppose. I merely liked your way of talking, liked your big green eyes, liked your lithe young body. And I like you still, Amalia. So I shall not play the twopenny despot. God be with you, my dear. He had seen tears in those admirable eyes before he turned his back to her. Monsieur de Chatures, he called, I find the lady is adamant. I wish you a pleasant journey. He held open the door of the carriage for de Chatures to enter. You will forgive us, your highness, asked the latter. You will forget, murmured the Baroness. I shall do both, said the Grand Duke. Bon voyage, mes enfants. And with a cracking of whips the carriage drove off. Victoria, said the plump little Grand Duke, in admiration, you are a remarkable woman. I think that I will walk for a while in the gardens, and meditate upon the perfections of my wife. 8. He strolled in the direction of the woods. As he reached the summit of a slight incline, he turned and looked toward the road that leads from Briscoe to Vienna. A cloud of dust showed where the carriage had disappeared. Ma foi, said His Highness, my wife has very fully proven her executive ability. Beyond doubt, there is no person in Europe better qualified to rule Numaria as regent. Love's Alumni, the after-piece as played at Injilby, the 6th of October, 1755. Though marriage be a lottery, in which there are a wondrous many blanks, yet there is one inestimable lot, in which the only heaven on earth is written. Would your kind fate but guide your hand to that, though I were wrapped in all that luxury itself could clothe me with, I still should envy you. Dramatis Personae, Duke of Ormskirk. Louis de Soyecourt, formerly Grand Duke of Numaria, and now a tuner of pianofortes. Duc de Puisange. Damiens, servant to Ormskirk. In dumb show are presented Lord Humphrey Degg, Captain Francis Ordain, Mr. George Owen, Duchess of Ormskirk, Duchess de Puisange, Lady Humphrey Degg, Mrs. Ordain, and Mrs. Owen. Scene the library, and afterward the dining room, of Ormskirk's home at Injilby, in Westmoreland. Love's Alumni Proem, wherein a prince serves his people. The Grand Duke did not return to breakfast nor to dinner, nor, in point of fact, to Numaria. For the second occasion Louis de Soyecourt had vanished at the spiriting of boredom, and it is gratifying to record that his evasion passed without any train of turmoil. The Grand Duchess seemed to disapprove of her bereavement, mildly, but only said, well, after all. She saw to it that the ponds about the palace were dragged conscientiously, and held an interview with the chief of police, and more lately had herself declared regent of Numaria. She proved a capable and popular ruler, who when she began to take lovers allowed none of them to meddle with politics, so all went well enough in Numaria, and nobody evinced the least desire to hasten either the maturity of young Duke Antony or the reappearance of his father. I meantime had come to Injilby, the Duke of Ormskirk's place in Westmoreland, a smallish blue-eyed vagabond who requested audience with his grace, and presently got it, for the Duke, since his retirement from public affairs, he returned to office during the following year, as is well known, immediately before the attempted assassination of the French king, in the January of 1757. had become approachable by almost any member of the public. The man came into the library, smiling. "I entreat your pardon, Monsieur le Duc," he began, "that I have not visited you sooner. But in unsettled times, you comprehend, the master of a beleaguered fortress is kept busy. This poor fortress of my body has been of late most resolutely besieged by poverty and hunger, the while that I have been tramping about Europe, in search of Gaston. Now, they tell me, he is here." The travesty of their 5-year-old interview at Bellegarde so tickled Ormskirk's fancy that he laughed heartily. "Damien," said Ormskirk, to the attendant lackey, "go fetch me a Protestant minister from Manaville, and have a gallows erected in one of the drawing rooms. I intend to pay off an old score." Meantime he was shaking the little vagabond's hand, chuckling and a-beam with hospitality. "Your Grace," said Damiens, bewildered. "Well, go, in any event," said Ormskirk. "Oh, go anywhere, man, to the devil, for instance." His eyes followed the retreating lackey. "As I suspect in the end you will," Ormskirk said, inconsequently. "Still, you are a very serviceable fellow, my good Damiens. I have need of you." And with a shrug he now began, "Your Highness, praise God, no," observed the other, fervently. And Ormskirk nodded his comprehension. "Monsieur de Soyecourt, then?" "Of course, we heard of your disappearance. I have been expecting something of the sort for years. And, frankly, politics are often a nuisance, as both Gaston and myself will willingly attest, especially," he added, with a grimace, "since war between France and England became inevitable through the late happenings in India and Nova Scotia, and both our wives flatly declined to let either of us take part therein, for fear we might catch our death of cold by sleeping in those draughty tents. Faith, you have descended, sir, like an agreeable meteor, upon two of the most scandalously henpecked husbands in all the universe. In fact, you will not find a gentleman at Ingleby, save Mr. Edwin, perhaps, but is an abject slave to his wife, and in consequence most abjectly content." "You have guests, then," said de Soyecourt. "Ma foi, it is unfortunate. I but desired to confer with Gaston concerning the disposal of Beaujolais and my other properties in France, since I find that the sensation of hunger, while undoubtedly novel, is, when too long continued, apt to grow tiresome. I would not willingly intrude, however, were it not for the fact that you are wealthy, and yet, so long as you preserve your incognito, and remain legally dead, you cannot touch a penny of your fortune. The situation is droll. We must arrange it. Meanwhile you are my guest, and I can assure you that at Ingleby you will be to all Monsieur de Soyecourt, no more and no less. Now let us see what can be done about clothing Monsieur de Soyecourt for dinner." "But I could not consider," Monsieur de Soyecourt protested. "I must venture to remind you," the Duke retorted, "that dinner is almost ready, and that Claire is the sort of housewife who would more readily condone fratricide or arson than cold soup." "It is odd," little de Soyecourt said, with complete irrelevance, that in the end I should get aid of you and of Gaston. And it is odd you should be forgiving my bungling attempts at crime, so lightly. Ormskirk considered, a new gravity in his plump face. Faith, but we find it more salutary, in looking back, to consider some peccadilloes of our own. And we bear no malice, Gaston and I, largely, I suppose, because contentment is a great encourager of all the virtues. Then, too, we remember that to each of us, at the 11th hour, and through no merit of his own, was given the one thing worthwhile in life. We did not merit it, few of us merit anything, for few of us are at bottom either very good or very bad. Nay, my friend, for the most part we are blessed or damned as fate elects, and hence her favourites may not in reason contemn her victims. For myself, I observe the king upon his throne and the thief upon his coffin, in passage for the gallows, and I pilfer my phrase and I apply it to either spectacle. There, but for the will of God, sits John Bulmer. I may not understand, I may not question, I can but accept. Now, then, let us prepare for dinner, he ended, in quite another tone. De Court yielded. He was shown to his rooms, and Ormskirk rang for Damiens, whom the Duke was sending into France to attend to a rather important assassination. At dinner Louis de Court made divers observations. First, Gaston had embraced him, and the de Gatineau estates, but beyond question, my dear Louis. Next week we return to France, and the affair is easily arranged. You may abdicate in due form. You need no longer skulk about Europe disguised as a piano tuner. It is all one to France, you conceive, whether you or your son reign in New Maria. You should have come to me sooner. As for your having been in love with my wife, I could not well quarrel with that, since the action would seriously reflect upon my own taste, who am still most hideously in love with her. Hélène had stoutened. Monsieur de Court noted also that Hélène's gold hair was silvering now, as though time had tangled cobwebs through it, and that Gaston was profoundly unconscious of the fact. In Gaston's eyes she was at the most 17. Well, Hélène had always been admirable in her management of all, and it would be diverting to see that youngest child of hers. Meanwhile it was diverting also to observe how conscientiously she was exerting a good influence over Gaston, and de Court smiled to find that she shook her head at Gaston's third glass, and that de Puisange did not venture on a fourth. Victoria, to do her justice, had never meddled with any of her husband's vices. As for the Duchess of Ormskirk, Louis de Court had known from the beginning, in comparative youthfulness, that Claire would placidly order her portion of the world as she considered expedient, and that Ormskirk would travesty her, and somewhat bewilder her, and that in the ultimate Ormskirk would obey her to the letter. Captain Ordain Monsieur de Court considered at the start diverting, and in the end a pompous bore. Yet they assured him that Ordain was getting on prodigiously in the House of Commons. Footnote: the captain's personal quarrel with the Chevalier St. George and its remarkable upshot, at Antwerp, as well as the captain's subsequent renunciation of Jacobitism, are best treated of in Garendon's own memoirs. As Foi he would most naturally do, since his métier was simply to shout well-rounded commonplaces, and the circumstance that he shouted would always attract attention, while the fact that he shouted platitudes would invariably prevent his giving offence. Lord Humphrey Degg was found a ruddy and comely person, of no especial importance, but de Soyecourt avidly took note of Mr. Ewin's waistcoat. Why, this man was a genius. Monsieur de Soyecourt at first glance decided. Staid, demure even, yet with a quiet prodigality of color and ornament, an inevitableness of cut. Oh, beyond doubt, this man was a genius. As for the ladies at Injilby, they were adjudged to be handsome women, one and all, but quite unattractive, since they evinced not any excessive interest in Monsieur de Soyecourt. Here was no sniff of future conquest, not one sidelong glance, but merely three wives unblushingly addicted to their own husbands. ABN. These were droll customs. Yet in the little man woke a vague suspicion, as he sat among these contented folk, that, after all, they had perhaps attained to something very precious of which his own life had been void, to a something of which he could not even form a conception. Love, of course, he understood, with thoroughness. No man alive had loved more ardently and variously than Louis de Soyecourt. But what the devil? Love was a temporary delusion, an ingenious device of nature's to bring about perpetuation of the species. It was a pleasurable insanity which induced you to take part in a rather preposterously silly and undignified action. And once this action was performed, the insanity, of course, gave way to mutual tolerance, or to dislike, or, more preferably, as de Soyecourt considered, to a courteous oblivion of the past. And yet when this Ordain, to cite one instance only, had vented some particularly egregious speech, that exquisite wife of his would merely smile, in a fond, half-musing way. She had twice her husband's wit, and was cognizant of the fact, beyond doubt. To any list of his faults and weaknesses you could have compiled she indubitably might have added a dozen items, familiar to herself alone, and with all this, it was clamant that she preferred Ordain to any possible compendium of the manly virtues. Why, in comparison, she would have pished at a seraph, after 5 years of his twaddle, mark you. And Hélène seemed to be really not much more sensible about Gaston. It all was quite inexplicable. Yet Louis de Soyecourt could see that not one of these folk was blind to his or her yoke-fellow's frailty, but that, beside this something very precious to which they had attained, and he had never attained, a man's foible, or a woman's defect, dwindled into insignificance. Here, then, were people who, after 5 years' consortment, consciously defiant of time's corrosion, of the guttering out of desire, of the gross and daily disillusions of a life in common, and even of the daily fret of all trivialities shared and diversely viewed, who could yet smile and say, "No, my companion is not quite the perfect being I had imagined. What does it matter? I am content. I would have nothing changed." Well, but Victoria had not been like that. She let you go to the devil in your own way, without meddling, but she irritated you all the while by holding herself to a mark. She had too many lofty ideas about her own duties and principles, much such uncompromising fancies as had led his father to get rid of that little Nelchin. No, there was no putting up with these rigid virtues, day in and day out. These high-flown notions about right and wrong upset your living, they fretted your luckless associates. These people here at Ingleby, by example, made no pretensions to immaculacy. Instead, they kept their gallant compromise with imperfection, and they seemed happy enough. There might be a moral somewhere, but he could not find it. Curtain. The epilogue spoken by Ormskirk, who enters in a fret a thankless task. To come to you and mar your dwindling appetite for caviar, and so I told him. He calls within. Sir, the critics sneer, and swear the thing is crude and insincere. Too trivial. Or for an instant pause and doubly damn with negligent applause. Impute, in fine, the prowess of the vicar less to repentance than to too much liquor. Find Louis naught. De Gatineau inane. Gaston unvital, and George Ewin vain, and Deg the futile fellow of Ordain. Nay, sir, no epilogue avails to save, you're damned, and Bulmer's hooted as a knave. He retires behind the curtain and is thrust out again. He resolves to make the best of it. The author's obdurate, and bids me say that, since the doings of our far-off day smacked less of Hippocrene than of Bohea, his tiny pictures of that tiny time aim little at the lofty and sublime, and paint no peccadillo as a crime. Since when illegally light midges mate, or flies purloin, or gnats assassinate, no sane man hails them to the magistrate. Or so he says. He merely strove to find and fix a faithful likeness of mankind about its daily business, to secure no full-length portrait, but a miniature, and for it all no moral can procure. Let Bulmer, then, defend his old-world crew, and beg indulgence, nay, applause, of you. Grant that we tippled and were indiscreet, and that our idols all had earthen feet. Grant that we made of life a masquerade, and swore a deal more loudly than we prayed. Grant none of us the man his Maker meant, our deeds, the parodies of our intent, in neither good nor ill preeminent. Grant none of us a Nero, none a martyr, all merely so-so. And de tenerature. Explicit. Asterisk 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 end of the Project Gutenberg book Gallantry. Dizain des Fetes Galantes asterisk 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 updated editions will replace the previous one, the old editions will be renamed. Creating the works from print editions not protected by U.S. copyright law means that no one owns a United States copyright in these works, so the Foundation, and you, can copy and distribute it in the United States without permission and without paying copyright royalties. Special rules, set forth in the general terms of use part of this license, apply to copying and distributing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol concept and trademark. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark, and may not be used if you charge for an ebook, except by following the terms of the trademark license, including paying royalties for use of the Project Gutenberg trademark. If you do not charge anything for copies of this ebook, complying with the trademark license is very easy. You may use this ebook for nearly any purpose, such as creation of derivative works, reports, performances and research. Project Gutenberg ebooks may be modified and printed and given away. You may do practically anything in the United States with ebooks not protected by U.S. copyright law. Redistribution is subject to the trademark license, especially commercial redistribution. Start. Full license. The full Project Gutenberg license. Please read this before you distribute or use this work to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol. Mission of promoting the free distribution of electronic works. By using or distributing this work, or any other work associated in any way with the phrase Project Gutenberg, you agree to comply with all the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license available with this file or online at www.gutenberg.org/license. Section 1. General Terms of Use and Redistributing Project Gutenberg Trademark Symbol Electronic Works 1.0. By reading or using any part of this Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work, you indicate that you have read, understand, agree to and accept all the terms of this license and intellectual property, trademark/copyright, agreement. If you do not agree to abide by all the terms of this agreement, you must cease using and return or destroy all copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works in your possession. If you paid a fee for obtaining a copy of or access to a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work and you do not agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement, you may obtain a refund from the person or entity to whom you paid the fee as set forth in paragraph 1.e.8. 1.b Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark. It may only be used on or associated in any way with an electronic work by people who agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement. There are a few things that you can do with most Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works even without complying with the full terms of this agreement. See paragraph 1.c below. There are a lot of things you can do with Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works if you follow the terms of this agreement and help preserve free future access to Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works. See paragraph 1.e below. 1.c. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the Foundation or PGLAF, owns a compilation copyright in the collection of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works. Nearly all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain in the United States. If an individual work is unprotected by copyright law in the United States and you are located in the United States, we do not claim a right to prevent you from copying, distributing, performing, displaying or creating derivative works based on the work as long as all references to Project Gutenberg are removed. Of course, We hope that you will support the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol mission of promoting free access to electronic works by freely sharing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works in compliance with the terms of this agreement for keeping the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol name associated with the work. You can easily comply with the terms of this agreement by keeping this work in the same format with its attached full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license when you share it without charge with others. 1.d. The copyright laws of the place where you are located also govern what you can do with this work. Copyright laws in most countries are in a constant state of change. If you are outside the United States, check the laws of your country in addition to the terms of this agreement before downloading, copying, displaying, performing, distributing or creating derivative works based on this work or any other Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work. The Foundation makes no representations concerning the copyright status of any work in any country other than the United States. 1.e. Unless you have removed all references to Project Gutenberg, 1.e.1. The following sentence, with active links to, or other immediate access to, the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license must appear prominently whenever any copy of a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work, any work on which the phrase Project Gutenberg appears, or with which the phrase Project Gutenberg is associated, is accessed, displayed, performed, viewed, copied or distributed. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere in the United States and most other parts of the world at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook or online at www.gutenberg.org. If you are not located in the United States, you will have to check the laws of the country where you are located before using this ebook. 1.e.2. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work is derived from texts not protected by U.S. copyright law, does not contain a notice indicating that it is posted with permission of the copyright holder, the work can be copied and distributed to anyone in the United States without paying any fees or charges. If you are redistributing or providing access to a work with the phrase Project Gutenberg associated with or appearing on the work, you must comply either with the requirements of paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 or obtain permission for the use of the work and the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark as set forth in paragraphs 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.3. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work is posted with the permission of the copyright holder, your use and distribution must comply with both paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 and any additional terms imposed by the copyright holder. Additional terms will be linked to the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license for all works posted with the permission of the copyright holder found at the beginning of this work. 1.e.4. Do not unlink or detach or remove the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license terms from this work. or any files containing a part of this work or any other work associated with Project Gutenberg trademark symbol. 1.e.5. Do not copy, display, perform, distribute or redistribute this electronic work, or any part of this electronic work, without prominently displaying the sentence set forth in paragraph 1.e.1 with active links or immediate access to the full terms of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license. 1.e.6. You may convert to and distribute this work in any binary, compressed, marked up, non-proprietary or proprietary form, including any word processing or hypertext form. However, if you provide access to or distribute copies of a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work in a format other than plain vanilla ASCII or other format used in the official version posted on the official Project Gutenberg trademark symbol website, www.gutenberg.org, you must, at no additional cost, fee or expense to the user, provide a copy, a means of exporting a copy, or a means of obtaining a copy upon request, of the work in its original plain vanilla ASCII or other form. Any alternate format must include the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license as specified in paragraph 1.e.1. 1.e.7. Do not charge a fee for access to, viewing, displaying, performing, copying or distributing any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works unless you comply with paragraph 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.8. You may charge a reasonable fee for copies of or providing access to or distributing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works provided that you pay a royalty fee of 20% of the gross profits you derive from the use of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works calculated using the method you already use to calculate your applicable taxes. The fee is owed to the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark, but he has agreed to donate royalties under this paragraph to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Royalty payments must be paid within 60 days following each date on which you prepare, or are legally required to prepare, your periodic tax returns. Royalty payments should be clearly marked as such and sent to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation at the address specified in Section 4, Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. You provide a full refund of any money paid by a user who notifies you in writing, or by email, within 30 days of receipt that he does not agree to the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license. You must require such a user to return or destroy all copies of the works possessed in a physical medium and discontinue all use of and all access to other copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works. You provide, in accordance with paragraph 1.f.3, a full refund of any money paid for a work or a replacement copy, if a defect in the electronic work is discovered and reported to you within 90 days of receipt of the work. You comply with all other terms of this agreement for free distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works. 1.e.9. If you wish to charge a fee or distribute a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work or group of works on different terms than are set forth in this agreement, you must obtain permission in writing from the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the manager of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark. Contact the Foundation as set forth in Section 3 below. 1.f1.f.1 Project Gutenberg volunteers and employees expend considerable effort to identify, do copyright research on, transcribe and proofread works not protected by U.S. copyright law in creating the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol collection. Despite these efforts, Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works, and the medium on which they may be stored, may contain defects such as, but not limited to, incomplete, inaccurate or corrupt data, transcription errors, a copyright or other intellectual property infringement, a defective or damaged disk or other medium, a computer virus, or computer codes that damage or cannot be read by your equipment. 1.f.2 Limited warranty, disclaimer of damages, except for the right of replacement or refund described in paragraph 1.f.3, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark, and any other party distributing a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work under this agreement, disclaim all liability to you for damages, costs and expenses, including legal fees. You agree that you have no remedies for negligence, strict liability, breach of warranty or breach of contract except those provided in paragraph 1.f.3. You agree that the Foundation, the trademark owner, and any distributor under this agreement will not be liable to you for actual, direct, indirect, consequential, punitive or incidental damages even if you give notice of the possibility of such damage. 1.f.3 Limited right of replacement or refund. If you discover a defect in this electronic work within 90 days of receiving it, you can receive a refund of the money, if any, you paid for it by sending a written explanation to the person you received the work from. If you received the work on a physical medium, you must return the medium with your written explanation. The person or entity that provided you with the defective work may elect to provide a replacement copy in lieu of a refund. If you received the work electronically, the person or entity providing it to you may choose to give you a second opportunity to receive the work electronically in lieu of a refund. If the second copy is also defective, you may demand a refund in writing without further opportunities to fix the problem. 1.f.4 Except for the limited right of replacement or refund set forth in paragraph 1.f.3, this work is provided to you as is, with no other warranties of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to warranties of merchantability or fitness for any purpose. 1.f.5 Some states do not allow disclaimers of certain implied warranties or the exclusion or limitation of certain types of damages. If any disclaimer or limitation set forth in this agreement violates the law of the state applicable to this agreement, the agreement shall be interpreted to make the maximum disclaimer or limitation permitted by the applicable state law. The invalidity or unenforceability of any provision of this agreement shall not void the remaining provisions. 1.f.6 Indemnity. You agree to indemnify and hold the foundation, the trademark owner, any agent or employee of the foundation, anyone providing copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works in accordance with this agreement, and any volunteers associated with the production, promotion and distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works, harmless from all liability, costs and expenses, including legal fees, that arise directly or indirectly from any of the following which you do or cause to occur. A. Distribution of this or any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work. B. Alteration, modification, or additions or deletions to any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work, and C. Any defect you cause. Section 2. Information about the mission of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol is synonymous with the free distribution of electronic works in formats readable by the widest variety of computers, including obsolete, old, middle-aged and new computers. It exists because of the efforts of hundreds of volunteers and donations from people in all walks of life. Volunteers and financial support to provide volunteers with the assistance they need are critical to reaching Project Gutenberg trademark symbol's goals and ensuring that the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol collection will remain freely available for generations to come. In 2001, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation was created to provide a secure and permanent future for Project Gutenberg trademark symbol and future generations. To learn more about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and how your efforts and donations can help, see sections 3 and 4 and the Foundation information page at www.gutenberg.org. Section 3. Information about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation is a non-profit 501(c)(3) educational corporation organized under the laws of the state of Mississippi and granted tax-exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. The Foundation's IN or Federal Tax Identification Number is 64-6221541. Contributions to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation are tax-deductible to the full extent permitted by U.S. federal laws and your state's laws. The Foundation's business office is located at 809 North 1500 West, Salt Lake City, UT 84116, 801-596-1887. Email contact links and up-to-date contact information can be found at the Foundation's website and official page at www.gutenberg.org/contact section 4. Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol depends upon and cannot survive without widespread public support and donations to carry out its mission of increasing the number of public domain and licensed works that can be freely distributed in machine-readable form accessible by the widest array of equipment, including outdated equipment. Many small donations, $1 to $5,000, are particularly important to maintaining tax-exempt status with the IRS. The Foundation is committed to complying with the laws regulating charities and charitable donations in all 50 states of the United States. Compliance requirements are not uniform and it takes a considerable effort, much paperwork and many fees to meet and keep up with these requirements. We do not solicit donations in locations where we have not received written confirmation of compliance. To send donations or determine the status of compliance for any particular state, visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. While we cannot and do not solicit contributions from states where we have not met the solicitation requirements, we know of no prohibition against accepting unsolicited donations from donors in such states who approach us with offers to donate. International donations are gratefully accepted, but we cannot make any statements concerning tax treatment of donations received from outside the United States. U.S. laws alone swamp our small staff. Please check the Project Gutenberg web pages for current donation methods and addresses. Donations are accepted in a number of other ways, including checks, online payments and credit card donations. To donate, please visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. Section 5. General information about Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works. Professor Michael S. Hart was the originator of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol concept of a library of electronic works that could be freely shared with anyone. For 40 years, he produced and distributed Project Gutenberg trademark symbol ebooks with only a loose network of volunteer support. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol ebooks are often created from several printed editions, all of which are confirmed as not protected by copyright in the US unless a copyright notice is included. Thus, we do not necessarily keep ebooks in compliance with any particular paper edition. Most people start at our website, which has the main PG search facility, www.gutenberg.org. This website includes information about Project Gutenberg trademark symbol, including how to make donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, how to help produce our new ebooks, and how to subscribe to our email newsletter to hear about new ebooks.